Likkutei Sichos, Chelek Daled, Dvarim Sicha Beis. Duber Kama Pamim. We've said many times, that Rashi's way in his commentary on the Torah, this is his practice. The Father is Kol Dover Akasha, built a movement to cover any question or problem that would arise in learning this simple pshat in Pshat Mikra. And something which seems to require explanation. Reading the psukim simply. The Ein Nashi Mefarshon, and Nashi doesn't explain them. This itself is a proof that in Nashi's view, they are self-understood, but to the point, there's no reason to explain it. Or they're understood based on something Rashi said earlier. Now look in footnote 2. If there's no explanation in Pshat, Rashi writes, any idea, I don't know, or something like that. Never brings an example. And it writes, Likkutei Sichos Chelek Amud 1 Ha'ara 2 V'Nismin Sham. And there is a very Gishmak Ha'ara, where Rebbe begins by saying that Rashi is Pshuta Shal Mikra, and that's his primary objective, as Rashi says, V'ani Lebasi El Pshutai. And then Rebbe puts in the footnote that even when Rashi says a Medrash or an Haggadah, it's only a Haggadah which is connected to Pshat. And based on this, the Rebbe says, the answer is a big question. There are some times when Rashi says, I don't know, when the answer is actually found in Midrash Razal. So why would Rashi say, I don't know, instead of just quoting Midrash Razal? Is a raya that the Midrash Razal is Medrash, and Rashi is Pshuta Shal Mikra. And therefore, Rashi is so committed to explaining Pshuta Shal Mikra that even when there's a beer al Pidrush, he's not going to quote it, and he'll say, I don't know, if that beer does not fit with Pshuta Shal Mikra. So for the fact that Rashi says, Eine Ideya, when elsewhere the Midrash Chazal have a beer, is the biggest raya that Rashi is committed to Pshuta Shal Mikra, which means if there's something that should be covered in Pshuta Shal Mikra and is not, Rashi would address it. And if he doesn't know the answer, he'll say any idea. If there's no answer, I'll be Pshuta Shal Mikra, even if there's a Medrash or Drush. Okay. So based on this, we have to understand, to me, a very big question. Question that comes up when learning the Parsha in Pashtus. Many Mefarshim suggest explanations. And Dafka Rashi, the chief of those committed to explain Pshat Mikra, does not address the question. So what's the question? The Parsha Seinu in our Parsha is super Moshe Baruch al Chet Meraglim. Rashi, Moshe Rabbeinu revisits the story of the Meraglim and describes it in detail. And on the Gzeira that the Eibishter imposed on that generation, which is in Yireh Ish B'Anashim Ba'ila Adar Hara Zeh Sa'ar Tatev V'Gomer, that this people are not going to be the people to see Eretz Yisrael, Mamshech, and the Moshe Rabbeinu continues in the narrative. It's quite a lengthy narrative, takes up quite a few psukim, and he concludes Zulus Kol Ben Yefuna, with the exception of Kol Ben Yefuna, who Yireh, he'll see it because he Yanashim Milei Hashem, because he did not go along with that Tzas Meraglim, and he came and gave a good report and said we could go conquer Eretz Yisrael. Mafsik, and then at this point, the Torah stops the narrative. V'omer, Moshe Rabbeinu stops the narrative and says, "V'omer, Gabi is son of Hashem. Hashem was angry at me too. Because of you. Leimar saying, that you too, Moshe Rabbeinu, will not go into Eretz Yisrael." And after this break, he goes back to the narrative of the Meraglim and says, Yeshua ben Nun, Yeshua ben Nun is standing here before you. He's going to be the one to go with you. And your children, whom you, meaning the generation of the Meraglim, said they're going to be for nothing, they're going to be the one to go into Eretz Yisrael with Yeshua. So the Torah reads like this. Moshe Rabbeinu describes the story of the Meraglim and the Gzeira, that they're not going to Eretz Yisrael, that generation. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to the people going to Eretz Yisrael. So the people who he's talking about are already passed away. He's talking to the people about to go into Eretz Yisrael, and he's telling them that your parents, the generation of the Meraglim, they are not going in, and this is why, except for Kalev. And by the way, and then he adds in, Hashem's angry at me, I'm not going either. And then the Torah goes on to say, but Yeshua is going in. So a story of nobody going in, Kalev going in, Moshe Rabbeinu not going in, and then Yeshua going in. That's the order. I'm highlighting this because it's going to be significant as we go along in the Sikha. Okay, in the Horror 3, the Rebbe tells us to look at Abarbanel, Ramban, Sefrim, Kiyokar, Erchaim, and others. The Abarbanel, Ramban, and Erchaim are going to come up later, but all the answers are very geschmack and very interesting. But none of them quite satisfy Pshat Hashem, as we shall see. And therefore, the Rebbe asked the question, and this is the question that the Mefarshim mentioned in Horror 3 are here to answer. It seems to be not understood. Why is the Torah why is Moshe Rabbeinu breaking up the narrative of what happened to the Meraglim? That they didn't go to Eretz Yisrael. That generation didn't go to Eretz Yisrael. Except for Kalev and Yeshua, which did go into Eretz Yisrael. Breaking that up in the middle of telling us, in between telling us that Kalev is going in and Yeshua is going in, the Torah interjects by saying, that Hashem was angry at me too, and because of you, you didn't end up from not going in. It would seem as if the reason why Moshe is not going to Eretz Yisrael is for the same reason as this whole narrative of that generation not going to Eretz Yisrael, namely the Chet of the Meraglim. Now, seemingly, the reason why Moshe is not going to Eretz Yisrael, Mefurish, is explicitly stated in the Torah, it's the sin of the water, where Hashem said to talk to the water, talk to the rock so the water should come out, and Moshe hit the rock and the water came out. U'k'moshe nemar, the pasuk Taka says, this is the pasuk there in Chukas, Yan lo yamantim bi yugomer, l'chein lo tovias kal hazeh el oretz asher mitzati lehem. Hashem says, because you didn't trust in me, or you caused the Yidden not to properly trust in me, because you hit the rock instead of talking to the rock, that's why you're not going to Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, why is it interjected here in the middle of the narrative of the Meraglim? Moshe Rabbeinu is recounting the story that happened to the generation of the Meraglim, that they failed and if they're not going to Eretz Yisrael. And then he's telling us that two of those people, that generation is going to Eretz Yisrael. And in the middle of telling us the story, he tells us why he's not going to Eretz Yisrael. Now, the reason why he's not going to Eretz Yisrael is unrelated to the story of the Meraglim. He's not going to Eretz Yisrael because of what happened with the Mei Meriva, the rock, and the water. Moreover, specifically, the story of the Meraglim and the story of the water of Mei Meriva is separated by almost 40 years. The story of the Meraglim was very close to having just come out of Eretz Yisrael. Because they spent 40 days traversing the land of Eretz Yisrael as spies, therefore Hashem says there's going to be a Gzeda that for each day you walk the land unfaithfully, you'll be stuck in the desert for a year. Which means this happens at the beginning of the 40 years, obviously. But the story of Mei Meriva happens after Miriam, right? Only when the Jews had water the whole time, and only once Miriam died, right? That's what Rashi says there in Chukas, that because Miriam died, that's why they didn't have water, and that's why Moshe Rabbeinu had to talk to the rock, and that's why he was told to talk to the rock and then later hit the rock, right? Yeah, and especially as Rashi says here clearly, this is the Rashi that the Rebbe points to in Hara 8. Rashi says clearly, for 40 years they had water because of Miriam, which means Miriam's death, and the story with Mei Meriva happens at the end of the 40 years. Okay, so the question therefore is, why when Moshe Rabbeinu is retelling a story that happened 40 years ago about why that the previous generation, the generation of the Meraglim didn't go to Eretz Yisrael, because the story of the Meraglim, Moshe interjects it by saying that he's not either going to Eretz Yisrael. Well, the reason why he's not going to Eretz Yisrael didn't happen 40 years ago. It happened just recently, just after Miriam passed away. Now, in the Ramban B'Taretz, the Ramban answers, the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu interjects this narrative by telling us the reason why he's not going to Eretz Yisrael, which is the chet of the water, by hitting the rock instead of talking to the rock. The Torah, or Moshe Rabbeinu, wanted to put together, to combine all of the different elements that lead to the totality of all these people not going to Eretz Yisrael. For the populace, it's because of the story of the Meraglim, and for Moshe Rabbeinu, it's because of the story of the Mei Meriva. That's true. But Al Kaponim, it's all under the same umbrella of he did not go into Eretz Yisrael. Interesting answer. But this is not a good enough in Pshat Mikra, which has been demonstrated earlier. Rashi is committed to Pshat Mikra only. Key number one, the story before and after is about the Meraglim. Why interject in the middle of the narrative about the Meraglim? Put it at the end. After you finish describing why the Meraglim aren't going in, then tell us why you're not going in if you feel like it's necessary to put them together. Why middle? Footnote 9, the Rebbe says that's Taka the Erechaim's question on the Ramban. And the Erechaim gives a different answer. The Erechaim's answer is that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go to Eretz Yisrael because of the Maisa with the Meraglim, but the story of the Mei Meriva was an opportunity to undo that Gzeira, and because he didn't do it right, he didn't get that opportunity. That's what it emerges from the Erechaim, but L'chora is going to come up it's going to come up soon here at the beginning of days. Okay. So that's question number one. If Taka wrote the Ramban's reason that the Eibush there, Moshe Rabbeinu the Torah wanted to put all the reasons for not going to Eretz Yisrael together, that's fine and good. But why in the middle of the story of Menachem tell us why Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to Eretz Yisrael? Tell us after. Question number two. The people, the generation of the desert died before the story of Mei Meriva, before Rashi says, Rashi says, in Chukas there, in the same parsha we read earlier, that the whole 40 years the Jews had water because of Miriam. And now Miriam passed away, that's why they have no water, and that's why Moshe Rabbeinu had to talk to the stone, but instead hit the stone. There, Rashi says that at this point in time, all the people already died. Valpiz and move on until it's understood. Amroi, Toiman Shalcha Noshim Bi San of Hashem Beglalchem, Betapim Shemaitim Gomer, Shemashim Osei Shehem, Oisadar Shalem Duba Bakolak Mela. By putting this part of the story in the middle there, in the middle describing the story of the Meraglim, telling us that Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hashem got angry at me as well because of you. The because of you sounds like the you in these words seem to be the same you, the same people that he's talking about the entire time. And the entire time, he's not talking about the people he's actually talking to. He's talking about their parents who's the generation of Meraglim. And therefore, there's an inconsistency. The whole time, Moshe Rabbeinu was talking about the people in reference to the people a generation prior who had just died, the generation of the Meraglim. And yet here, when he says, because of you, I'm not going to Eretz Yisrael, that's talking about you, the people who are living now, the people he's actually talking to. Because those are the ones that were alive at the time of the story of the Mei Meriva. So the you and the people that Moshe is talking about is inconsistent. When he's talking about the story of the Meraglim, he's talking about the generation prior. And now he talked about himself not going to Eretz Yisrael. The you, the people he's referring to, is not those people he's talking about till now who just died. He's talking about the people he's talking to right here. If there's an inconsistency in the way in which Moshe Rabbeinu is describing the story. Okay, Gimel. Question number 3. The Fiza cost of Zeg, Abisan of a Gamer. If, according to the Ramban, the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu talks about why he's not going to Eretz Yisrael because the Torah wanted to put all the reasons for not going to Eretz Yisrael together, the Meraglim and that generation for one reason, and Moshe for another reason wanted to put them all together, then they should have all been said when the psukim actually say that they're not going to Eretz Yisrael. And not after he just finished telling us that Chelek is going to go in, right? Remember, I told you before that the story is like this. The Torah's narrative is as follows. The story of the Meraglim, they're not going in. Chelek is going in. Moshe says, I'm not going in. And then Yeshua is going in. So Moshe Rabbeinu not going in is actually stuck between two psukim of people who are going in. So if the idea is to combine all the people that are not going to Eretz Yisrael together, why stick this in between people who are actually going in? You should put the pasuk earlier where he's talking about the people who aren't going in, or later when he repeats that. Yeah, later, a few psukim later, where he goes on to say that you guys, meaning the generation before, the Meraglim, aren't going in. And Rebbe tells us here, 22, where essentially the Ramban says, and we're going to look at it later, the Ramban says that the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu mentions his own not going to Yisrael now is because he wants to explain why Yeshua is leading the people in. Right? It says Kalev is going in, and it says Yeshua is leading the people in, and in between it says Moshe Rabbeinu is not going in, and that's kind of a lead on to why Yeshua has to lead you. The reason why Yeshua is leading you is because I'm not going. Right? So it says, look there, and that answers this particular question. But what's interesting though is that answering it that way and saying that the reason why it comes here is to tell us why Yeshua is going in is because Moshe Rabbeinu is not the same answer that the Ramban said initially, which is we're combining all the people not going in together. No, it's be consistent. If we're saying that the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu not going to Eretz Yisrael is brought up at this point is because we want to connect it with the other people not going in, then don't put it here. Right? Unless you're going to go with the other reason, that the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu's not going in is mentioned here is as a precursor to the fact that Yeshua is going in. Right? Which really only answers this question. It doesn't answer the previous questions of the inconsistency of Beglalchem. That Beglalchem refers to the people he's talking to, whereas the rest of the time when he talks about you, the nation, it's talking about the generation that passed away. Right? He's saying, and I said to you, meaning in the past, I said to your fathers. And it also doesn't answer, it does answer the first question. Okay. So Yesh Mefarshim, there are those Mefarshim, which explain, Shagam bi Yisan of Hashem Beglalchem. That when the Pasuk says that when Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hashem was angry with me because of you. Hakavonehi l'chet meraglim. The intention is the sin of the meraglim. Ubi'ikir b'sibas chet zeh nigzer al Moshe gam ato lo tavesham. And primarily, it's for this reason that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go to Eretz Yisrael, because of the story of the meraglim. Now, even though Moshe himself is not the one who actually sinned, he is still punished and not going to Eretz Yisrael with him, even though he wasn't part of the sin, chas v'shalom, because it happened through him. By the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu chose, at least according to Rashi, of course, that Moshe Rabbeinu himself was told, you decide whether to send the spies, which means it was totally Moshe's decision. So upon him, nigram chet meraglim. Therefore, he caused the story, the sin of the meraglim. We're going to look at the footnotes in a moment. And therefore, he says, because of you. And therefore, he says, the reason why I'm not going to Israel is because of you, not because he sinned. He didn't sin. But because of you, therefore, I'm not going to as well. Because Hashem said that the entire generation is not going to Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, Moshe himself is not going in because Moshe is part of the generation, but not because he himself did the sin, chas v'shalom. But the main point of the answer here is that the main meriva is not the reason why Moshe didn't go to Eretz Yisrael, at least not the primary reason. The primary reason why Moshe is not going to Eretz Yisrael is because of the story of the meraglim. Now let's look at the footnotes here. First, Rebbe tells us to look at Abarbanel, Chaim, and the Malbim. So the Chaim I mentioned before, he says that a whole long beer that if Moshe Rabbeinu would have gone into Eretz Yisrael, it would have been Beis Hamikdash without any churban afterwards. Essentially, it seems like it would have been Mashiach's era. But because of the story of the meraglim, it says Gavra Yad Risha and there's Gaber Pchinos Hara, right? And therefore, the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu should lead them into Eretz Yisrael with the Binyan Olamis, the Beis Hamikdash in its eternal state, that they lost because of the meraglim. Now, the Torah says that the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go in is because of the Meriva. Says the Erechaim. If Moshe Rabbeinu would have spoken to the rock and not hit the rock, and that way made a Kiddush Hashem, then the Yidden would have gone to its pure state and undid that which when and undid that which the Meraglim caused, that the Yidden should go to a lower state, not being Zeicha to Moshe, for Moshe to go into them. Kiddush Hashem Agadav Hashem Mater Shvuas Moshe. In other words, the reason why they didn't go to Eretz Yisrael, Moshe didn't go to Yisrael because of the Meraglim. The Torah says it's because of the story with Mei Riva. That was only an opportunity for Moshe to undo that which the Meraglim caused. But Be'etzem, it's really because of the Meraglim. That's the Orach Chaim. The Abarbanel says, I have it up here. Now the So when the spies were supposed to go initially, but they didn't ask, it was only they just wanted to go and see which cities they should attack first. Hashem said, send spies and let them check out the land. It doesn't add this issue of shlach l'cha daitcha. Rashi said that, but the Bible does not say that, at least not here. Now, Moshe, our master Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu added other things to what they have to do when they get to Yisrael. Are the people strong or not? Is a lot of people, little people. Is the land good or bad? Are they walled cities or not walled cities? And all these other questions, that Moshe Rabbeinu told the spies to find out. For sure, he had good intentions. He wanted to get the Yidden to really get into finding out how amazing Eretz Yisrael is. So Moshe Rabbeinu didn't just say, go check out the land like Hashem said. He added all these details, find out this, find out that, find out how good it is, find out how strong the cities are, to get them more excited. But as a result of that, we know the results. The Meraglim made the sins. Because they were looking out to answer those questions, they came back by saying it's too strong, instead of coming back excited. And the cities are too strong. And as a result of that, they were told they can't go to Eretz Yisrael. And because Moshe Rabbeinu added details to their mission that the Yidden didn't ask for. And now the Ibishter command, and therefore as a result of that, Yidden died in the desert. So Moshe Rabbeinu became an initial cause for their eventual sin, even though it wasn't his intention. But the point, that's what happened. Moshe Rabbeinu was hoping by adding all the details to their mission that they would get excited. But instead, by adding the details, they came back with a negative report. And therefore, says the Abarbanel, that's the etzem why Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go to Yisrael, because he was the initial cause for the sin. Okay. That's the Abarbanel. And then there is the Malbim. And the Malbim says, pull it up here. Because Moshe right? Similar to the Orach Chaim, not exactly, but it's very similar. That Be'etzem, the reason why it's not going to Israel is because of the story of the Meraglim. But it was exactly without a shvuah, and had he, the Orach Chaim says it was a shvuah, but that had Moshe been Mekadesh Shemaim Mei Riva, he would have undone the shvuah. But here he's saying it was executed without a shvuah, and the Mei Riva caused it that there should be a shvuah and not changing. But the similar idea. Okay, so all of these Mefarshim essentially say that the reason why Moshe didn't go to Eretz Yisrael is because of the Chet Meraglim. So now let's see this, the Ha'ara 14, right? So you see here, that Moshe Rabbeinu was a cause. So in the parentheses, actually, the Rebbe said that's because of Shlach L'chol Daitcha, it's like Rashi, right? But then Beglalche Akaponim Nigram Chet Meraglim, the Rebbe tells us, look at the Abarbanel, which we just saw, where the Abarbanel says that Moshe Rabbeinu caused by adding details to their mission. Then our 15 episodes like this. Brachas, and Rashi mentions it in Parshas Sisa, where Hashem says, Lech Reid, after the Yidden do the sin, the Chet Egel, Hashem says, Lech Reid, go down. And there we say that Moshe Rabbeinu is told to go down from his level because why is Moshe Rabbeinu great? Only for the Yidden. And if the Yidden go down, so you have to go down. Which means, in Orah 15, the Rebbe is saying, why is Moshe Rabbeinu not going to Eretz Yisrael? Not because he did anything, but because his people aren't going to Eretz Yisrael. And if his people aren't going to Eretz Yisrael, he can't go to Yisrael. But according to the Barbanel, it's not just that Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to Eretz Yisrael because he's part of the generation and his Gedula is attached to them. And if they can't go to Eretz Yisrael, he can't go to Eretz Yisrael. According to the Barbanel, it's more than that because he was a cause for it, because he added these extra questions to the mission. Now, that means that if you look at this paragraph right here, this paragraph at the beginning of the word V'af Shem Moshe, that means there's really be'etzem two things going on. From V'af until Orah 14 is one thing. That Moshe, and that's why he's not going to Eretz Yisrael, because he caused. But then L'chein Amar Beglalchem, Hani Shlo Yikon Eretz L'Eretz L'Mitzad Chitehu, El Beglalchem L'Megam Atu L'Tov Yisham, B'kivat Shal Kol Ader Nigzer Shlo Yikon L'Eretz L'chein Gam Moshe. It's a separate reason. Till Orah 14, the reason is because Moshe Rabbeinu was a cause. Either because, like Rashi says, Keshlach Lo Daitcha was his decision to send the Meraglim, or because, like the Barbanel said, because Moshe Rabbeinu added questions to their mission, which caused them to investigate further, which made them come back with a negative report. One version of why Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to Eretz Yisrael as a result of the Chet Meraglim, because he was a cause for it. And the next reason is because the Gedula of Moshe Rabbeinu is attached to his people. And if his people aren't going in, he's not going in. Ulayesh L'dayik. Okay. So what's left to explain now is back to the Pim in the Chatzoi Ribua at the top of the left-hand column. What's left to explain is Mashi before because of that which the Pasuk says mentioned before Shemosh. The reason why Moshe didn't go to Eretz Yisrael is because of the Chet Memeriva, which the Chorah contradicts all these Mefarshim which say that the reason why Moshe didn't go to Eretz Yisrael is because of the Meraglim. So some of the answers we already got. So we might suggest that only by combining these two sins together, the Chet Meraglim and the Chet Memeriva, Nigzer Lo Va'onish is how he got the punishment not to go to Yisrael. So in Orah 12, they would tell us look at the Barbanel and the Erech Chaim and the Malbim, which we saw all of them, all their answers, right? The Barbanel says, actually we didn't see the Barbanel. The Barbanel says like this. So over here. It's a very interesting word the Barbanel says. Where is it? וגם סביב זה בישראל מיעוט המונה ולא הלמענים בו לשון כי רצה להלם לעניין באופן הדברים. One second. Can't find the line you want to say, but the Abarbanel says that there's two reasons. One is the Siba Ikris, and that is the Chet Hameraglim. Oh, here it is. Not in Sham basic, but it's a long arichas and a shmak arichas. But it says like just the key I want to make a point here. Not in Sham basic, Siba Atzmis Nelemes, the essential hidden reason. These are the earlier sins. He's talking about both Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen, but for our purposes, the question of Moshe Rabbeinu. And the primary reason why he's not going to Eretz Yisrael is because of the Chet Meraglim. Then the Siba Kreva Glui Bilti Atmas. But then the Torah gives another revealed reason. That's not the real reason. V'hi Mimriv is Kodesh. And that's the issue of the Mimriv. And the Rabbanah goes on to say the reason why the Hashem did that is because he wanted to protect the honor of Moshe Rabbeinu by not explicitly stating here. He compares it to Nadav and Avihu, and then he says, it's appropriate that their reasons for their punishment should be hidden and not revealed. They shouldn't be lumped in together with all the sinners of Yidden. And therefore, specifically, the Torah conceals the real reason why it's not going to him. And he says somewhere else, can't find it right now, that the Torah hides it and leaves it hinted so that one who knows how to figure it out can figure it out. But Be'etzim, the Torah does not want to tell us explicitly why Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to Eretz Yisrael, because that's to protect Moshe Rabbeinu's covet. And therefore the Torah doesn't say explicitly the reason why it's not going because of the Meraglim, and the Torah says, oh, it's because of the Meimedi, but that's not really the reason. The real reason is because of the story of Meraglim. Right? So that's a bit of a different word than saying B'tzir of Shneim Yachad. But nonetheless, it's still within that realm that there's more than one issue at play here. There's a number of things. There's a Siba Atzmis, which is Nelemes, and then there's a Siba, which is not Atzmis, which is Gluya, Kreva of a Gluya, like the Rabbi Levi says. Or like the Rebbe Chaim says, there was an opportunity to undo the problem of the Chet and Raglan by Meimediva, and likewise the Malbim said a similar thing. Similar to that which we find in the View. Many different things are said for the reasons why they passed away. But only by all of them coming together, dafka how there's einish misa. Another Navi only died as a result of a number of things coming together. What are the number of things? Let's look at Ayah 16. Yud. Shmini Yud Beis Mefarsh Rashi Shmini Sham and the Barben Al-Khan. Okay, so the Barben Al-Khan we saw already here. I mentioned that the Barben Al compares this idea of the Torah giving decoy reasons for Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to Eretz Yisrael when the real reason is the Meraglim. The Barben Al compares that to Nadav and Avihu, where the Torah says one reason and then the Mefarsh Torah say different reasons, right? Just indicating that the Torah says one thing, but it's really to conceal the truth of what's really going on, not to protect their covet. But what's going on in Nashi Mishpatim Chav Daled, Perek Yud, Pasuk Yud, I'm sorry. Perek Chav Daled, Pasuk Yud. Where is it here? Over here, the Pasuk's talking about Moshe Rabbeinu going up to the mountain. And Moshe Rabbeinu tells them that they shouldn't come and they shouldn't look. They shouldn't come near the mountain. The whole process there where Moshe Rabbeinu sprinkles the hazaz, the dam bris on them. Moshe Rabbeinu writes down all of the Torah from Bereshis till that point. And the pasuk says, "Vayiru es Elokei Yisrael," and they looked and they saw Hashem. Says Rashi, "Nistaklu veitzitzu." They looked, and it's misa, and really they were liable for death at that point because they looked when they weren't supposed to. But Hashem didn't want to ruin, as it were, the joy of them getting the Torah, and therefore give them misa at this point. All the people, Aaron, Nadav, or Nadav and Avihu and the Shivim Zikanim, were not supposed to look, and they did look. So really they should have the punishment of misa right then and there. But Hashem didn't want to ruin the simcha of Torah, and therefore he waited for the opportunity later, as it were, to give Nadav and Avihu the misa that they deserved for looking at the Eibush when they weren't supposed to, and waited till the end of after the Mishkan was built and they went in. And then the same thing with Canaan. Hashem waited to the point when the Yidden were complaining about not getting that the man is not good, not enough. And then the Zikanim passed away. Okay, so you see here that there's a different reason why Nadav and Avihu didn't pass away. Not because they brought an Eish Zara Lefnei Hashem, and not because Shasa Yayin or the other reasons mentioned there, but because they looked at Eibush when they weren't supposed to. That's the reason that Rashi gives here. And then, so look at Rashi in Shmini, where there it says that the fire came in and they passed away. Says the Rashi, one reason. Another reason. Right? And the Rebbe says here in the footnote, where am I? The Rebbe says in the footnote to look at the Mefarshei Rashi. So you can, right? Over here. Mefarshei Rashi Shmini Sham. So let's look at the Mefarshim in Rashi. Look at the Gur Aryeh here, where the Gur Aryeh brings up this issue of L'chora, they passed away because they looked at the Eibush there when they weren't supposed to. So why are we saying now other reasons why they have Misa? So explains the Gur Aryeh, even though it's true that Rashi said earlier, we just read the Rashi Mishpatim, that the reason why they were Chayav Misa is because they looked at the Eibush there when they weren't supposed to. Ain't the question, not question. Why? Even the other panim shazam, because the time of anger passed, which cause of the pasuk says, where Hashem says, hide for a minute, wait till the anger goes away. So once the anger is gone, there's no punishment happening. So the moment of anger at that moment, when they looked at the shidduch when they weren't supposed to pass, because Hashem didn't want to ruin the simcha of Torah, even though they're supposed to, get Misa at that point. Because maybe she was angry at them. But the moment that anger, the moment of anger passed, so we have to have something else to cause the Misa. What's the diadem like? If this is not the case, why did Hashem have to wait? If they were supposed to pass away right when they looked at the Shekhinah, and they weren't supposed to. That's when they were supposed to pass away. But Hashem didn't decide not to give them that Misa because Hashem didn't want to ruin the Simcha of Matan Torah. So why wait till Hakamas HaMishkan? As soon as the Simcha Matan Torah is over, they should get their Misa. Hashem didn't want them to pass away Matan Torah. In Cain is Batla Misa. If that's the case, that means the moment of anger that happened then is gone. If the moment of anger is gone, so is the Misa gone. If you have to have something else to cause it. In Cain, in other words, there are things that they compound to cause the ultimate punishment of Misa. It starts off with hitzitz b'shchina when they weren't supposed to, and then because it couldn't happen then, therefore Hashem had to wait for some other opportunity for some other chet to cause zam, and then together combine the cause of Misa. So you see that in the Mefarshei Rashi itself, there's this notion of more than one chet coming together to cause einish. If that's the case, the Rebbe is essentially saying the same thing could apply here. That Moshe Rabbeinu, the real reason why he's not going to Eretz Yisrael is because of the Chet HaMeraglim. But alone it's not enough. You have to combine the other issue, the issue of the Mei Meriva. Now, and that's what this would explain why Moshe Rabbeinu says, while he's in the middle of telling us the narrative how the Meraglim didn't go to Yisrael, he says, Hashem also got angry at me because of you. Because this detail, that Moshe is not going to Yisrael, is part of the narrative of the Meraglim. And if that's the case, there's a consistency in when Moshe Rabbeinu says, because of you. The you he's talking about the whole time during the narrative is the generation of the Meraglim, and the you he says that caused me not to go to Eretz Yisrael is also the generation of the Meraglim. Because it's them that caused, it's that sin, the sin of Meraglim, that the etzem is why he's not going to Eretz Yisrael. Compounded with the Mei Meriva, but it's still part of the narrative of the Meraglim. So this is a very nice pshat in Shittas HaMikra, but there's one small problem. It doesn't fit with Rashi. Ulam Shittas Rashi, but in Rashi Shitta, you can't say this. Besides the fact that this third question was before, if what we're doing here is describing how the totality of that generation is not going to Eretz Yisrael, Moshe and the people. And according to these Mefarshim, it's all for the same reason, because of the Chet HaMeraglim. The question becomes, why say that in between telling us that Kalev is going in and Yeshua is going in, and in the middle you tell us that Moshe is not going in? That question hasn't been answered. It should have been, the fact that Moshe is not going in should have been placed together with the description of the generation not going in, because it's the same thing. But more importantly, Aleph, before Rashi says explicitly, Shal Moshe Nigzer Shalo Yikonis like Yisrael, that Moshe Rabbeinu was told not to go into Yisrael, Ach Verak, only and solely, Mipnei Mei Meriva, because of the story of Mei Meriva. Ukulashoni, as Rashi says in Parshas Pinchas, right? Parshas Pinchas, Shalo Yisrael Elo Zibulvat. There was no other reason for Moshe not to go to Yisrael except for the issue of the Mei Meriva. Heim Levadam Ein Bam Av Macher. Them, for the issue of the Mei Meraglim, is the only sin that Moshe Rabbeinu ever had. And Rashi keeps on iterating that point. To the point that Rashi, as we'll quote soon, says that every single time the punishment of Moshe not going into Eretz Yisrael is written, the Torah also says that the reason for not going in is because of the Mei Meriva. So that you should know he didn't make the mistake of the Meraglim. And you shouldn't think Moshe made the same mistake that all the other people made. So Rashi is very explicit in stating that Moshe Rabbeinu had only one sin. And therefore all the beauty we gave before of how to combine the Chet HaMeraglim together with Mei Meriva, that the Mei Meriva was a lost opportunity, or it's like a combination of the few, all that falls away. Because Rashi is explicit, it's only because of the issue of the Mei Meriva. Right? Which means that when Moshe Rabbeinu says now that Hashem is angry at me too because of you, And that's why I'm not going to Eretz Yisrael. It's not talking about the Meraglim. It's talking about the story of the Mimri Riva. And therefore, all the other questions we asked before are come back. Why is this put here? He's describing the story of the Meraglim. Why is he all of a sudden talking about himself? Base number 2. If you're going to go, even according to L'Shittasam, that Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to Eretz Yisrael because of the Chet Meraglim. Why use the word is anif? And as Rashi says, Nismal Leroiges, Hashem was filled with anger. It's not as if Moshe Rabbeinu was part of the story of part of the sin of the Meraglim. Chas v'shalom. It's only because of you, like mentioned before, either on one of two levels. Either like the second level mentioned in R 15, that Moshe Rabbeinu, as part of that generation, can't go to Eretz Yisrael. If they can't go to Eretz Yisrael, then Moshe Rabbeinu can't go to Eretz Yisrael. If that's the case, for sure the Eibush doesn't have to be angry with him because he didn't do anything. It's only that he's stuck with them. They're not going in, so he's not going in. And even according to their Barbanel, where Moshe Rabbeinu was a cause for them to do sin, for the Mechet Meraglim, or like Rashi, Shlach L'cha L'daitcha, and that's the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu is the Godim, but it's only a Godim. He didn't sin Chas Shalom, and his intention was good. According to Rashi's intention was good, and according to the Barbanel's intention was good. And for that, Nismal L'Roiges. So even L'Shittasam, the words in the Pasuk, in Pshut Shemikra, are failless. Gimel. Perhaps the reason why the Torah puts together the Chet of the Mimri Riva, Moshe Rabbeinu and the Chet Meraglim together, even though they're not shaykh to each other, they're two different issues. And they took part, they happened 40 years apart. Right? The story of the Meraglim happened at the beginning of the 40 years, we mentioned before, and that's why they stayed 40 years in the desert. And the Ma'aseh Mimri Riva happens after Miriam passed away, which is the end of the 40 years. But Lama, to teach you how strict and the how bad Kiviyachol the sin of the Mimri Riva was. The shakl of it's equal to the Chet Meraglim. And this idea of things in the Torah being put together, even though they happen far apart, to tell you that they're equal in their severity, there's already precedent for that in Rashi. And similar to that which Rashi said earlier, in other words, the precedent has already been established. It's mentioned before. Where's the footnote? Not before. Rashi is going to say it again because the precedent has been established. Where Rashi says, why is it that the Parsha Paraduma is mentioned in conjunction with the story of the death of Miriam, even though as we just finished saying, but the death of Miriam happens at the end of the 40 years, and the Parsha Paraduma happens way earlier. The Paraduma was commanded to the Yidden the second year after they came out of Eretz Yisrael. At the end of the 40 years. As we mentioned before, and as the Rebbe puts in footnote 14, that's the Mefarshei Rashi there explain. Why is Rashi to answer the question of Lama Nisma Moses Miriam Parshat Aduma? Because they're 40 years apart, almost, or 39 years apart. And what was the reason? Says Rashi, just like the Kabbalah are Mechaper, the Paraduma is Mechaper, so too the passing of Tzadikim, in this case Tzaddik Miriam, is also Mechaper. So we already have precedent from Rashi that things are put together to tell you that they're equally and stringent. Well, that is likewise Parshas Eikev. Later in Parshas Eikev, where there's the beginning that Moshe is giving rebuke to the Yidden, and he recounts the story of the Shviras Halochos, the story of the Chet Egel. The Samach Moshe Techachazu, Mrs. Aaron, the Shviras Halochos, Loim Moshe Kosim Misashin Tzadikim L'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kiyeb Shesav Be'Halochos. To tell you that Aaron's passing is equally difficult by the Eibishter as the breaking of the Luchas. And that's what Moshe puts them two together in Parshas Eikev. So in 2:20. So there's an interesting little thing going on there because it's Perek Yud in Parshas Eikev. And the first 5 psukim of Perek Yud, Moshe is describing the second Luchos. And then it says that in Pasuk Vav it says the Yidden traveled from Beis Yakan to Moiseda, and that's where Aaron passed away. and that's where they buried him. And Rashi asks in Pasuk Vav, Ma'in Zelakan. What's the connection here? Why is Aaron's death popping in here? Now she gives a whole areches, and then in Pasuk Zayin, Rashi says, now everybody's putting in the footnote here that Benitfas, the way we see it, is the way it's printed is the way I just said it. Where in Pasuk Vav, Rashi asked the question, and in Pasuk Zayin, Rashi really answered the question. It belongs to Pasuk. Come on, Arth, Amud 30, Shalagil Lahara 1, where the Rebbe makes this point that I just shared with you, that the proper way is, the more accurate way seems to be that this statement that Kash Misas and Kashviras Haluchos should be in the previous Rashi. Doesn't make sense that Rashi answers the question that he asked in Pasuk Vav and waits till Pasuk Zayin to answer the question. Therefore, it makes more sense if it's in the previous Devar Maschal. Okay. But bottom line is that we have this idea of precedence from Rashi with respect to Lama Nischa Parshas Beri and Parshas Baraduma, that two things are put together to tell you they're equal. And likewise, later in Parshas Ekev, Moshe, the Luches, the breaking of the Luches, and the death of Aaron HaKohen are also put together because to tell you that they're both equal. And therefore, says the Rebbe, okay. But this answers the doichik. Why? Key, number one. Aleph. It's not as if if the Torah had not put them together, it's not as if we wouldn't know that the two are equal in their severity. Why? Number one, the Chet Mimediv in itself was a Chilul Hashem, because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't follow through with what Hashem said to do. Hashem said to speak, and Moshe Rabbeinu hit. And this was in front of all the Yidden. Look, Moshe Rabbeinu, the pasuk says, you didn't have faith in me, or you didn't cause them to have faith in me by being Makadosh Shem Shemayim in front of everybody. To the point that because of this sin, Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to Eretz Yisrael. So you see, the punishments are the same. It's in front of all people. So we already know that they're equal in severity. When it comes to Misas, Miriam, and Paraduma, without the smichus, you wouldn't know that. Without the smichus, you wouldn't know that Misas Sadikim is Mechaperes. And likewise, you wouldn't know that Misas Aaron is Kosher Keshvirosan. And that's what that's put together. But the fact that these two, the fact that the Chet Mimediva is equal to Chet Meraglim, that's self-evident by how, first of all, the publicity of the Chet Mimediva, and number two, by the punishments. They both have the same punishment. So that's number one, why this can't be the reason why the Torah put it here. The reason is to tell you how severe the Chet Mimediva is. Then Moshe Rabbeinu should have said the Chet. He only mentioned the fact that he's not going to Eretz Yisrael, which means the primary objective of what the pasuk is trying to tell us here is not what Moshe Rabbeinu did and how bad it was, but rather to tell us that Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to Eretz Yisrael, because it's the only thing he mentions. He says, but because of you, I'm not going to Eretz Yisrael. Doesn't mention what he did. So if we're trying to say that what he did is so terrible, then say what he did. So all to say, we're coming back to square one, which is in Pshutei Shal Mikra. Why is the description of Moshe Rabbeinu saying that Hashem was angry at me and that's why I'm not going to Eretz Yisrael? Why is that stuck in the middle of the story of the Meraglim, where this is another reason why the Yidden are not going to Eretz Yisrael? They're two separate issues. The Meraglim happened at the beginning of the 40 years. Hashem said they can't go to Eretz Yisrael because of the Chet Meraglim. And a separate issue that happens 40 years later is the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do what Hashem said exactly, and therefore he's not going to Eretz Yisrael. Why are they stuck in the middle here? Especially considering that it's stuck in between the fact that Kolev is going in and Yeshua is going in. And in the middle of those two psukim, we stick in the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu is not going in. Beer Bezet explanations. The pasuk says the sin of their midbar imyuda ishes aretz hatevachum. Messiah, and it says, so first it describes, as we mentioned before, it describes at length the fact that the midbar not go to Israel, and then it concludes he is going to go in, and it says Yeshua ben Nun is also going to go in. She'enim kashar adar, that they are not like the rest of their generation. Elohim Yidus Earth, they will see the land of Eretz Yisrael. The pasuk divides Kalev and Yeshua going to Eretz Yisrael into two. First it says the Kalev ben Yefuna is going to go in. And afterwards, the pasuk pronouncement, a separate pasuk, it says Yeshua ben Nun, hu yover shama. It says Yeshua ben Nun is going to go in. And in between, it says that Moshe is not going in. Kalev, yes, going in, Moshe not going in, and then Yeshua going in. Batamas, and the reason is, even though both Kalev and Yeshua went to Israel, so why not put them together? That Kalev and Yeshua, everybody didn't go to Israel except for Kalev and Yeshua. Why say except for Kalev? And then another pasuk say and Yeshua. Even though they both went in, but the way they came in is different. Kalev ben Yefuna is going to go see Eretz Yisrael, and he's going to get a special Chelek. He got Hebron. But the Yeshua, but when it comes to Yeshua, it's a different story. Yahweh Shama is going to go there. But he's more of he's going to lead the Yidden in there. So it's two different things. Even though the reason why they're both going to Eretz Yisrael is the same, because neither of them sinned with the Meraglim, but the way in which they're going in is different. Kalev is going in just to see Eretz Yisrael, to inherit Eretz Yisrael, whereas Yeshua is going in as a leader. Now, Pisa moving and therefore before the pasuk tells us that Yeshua is going to be the leader, that's why Moshe interjects by saying, and Hashem was angry at me, and that's why I'm not going to Eretz Yisrael. Why? Over here we get an answer to a side question. Why is it that Kalev gets to inherit the land of Eretz Yisrael as a reward for not sinning with the Chet Meraglim, and Yeshua gets to lead? After Ma'aseh Shneim Shaveh, even though as far as what they did, it was the same. They both came back from the Ma'aseh with the Meraglim and didn't say bad things. And the Pasuk Taka says, Yeshua ben Nun ben Yefuna kara b'gdeim. They both ripped their clothing. They both reacted the same way during the Chet Meraglim. And therefore, talk over there when the pasuk says that they are going to go to Eretz Yisrael, it says it together. But all of you are not going to make it to Eretz Yisrael, except for Kalev ben Yefuna. Over there, it's lumped together. So why over here is it different? Why is Kalev going to Eretz Yisrael but Yeshua leading? And the answer is the reason why by Yeshua he doesn't just go to Eretz Yisrael like Kalev, but he actually leads in Eretz Yisrael because between then and now something new happened, which is Moshe Rabbeinu is not going into Eretz Yisrael, which means like this: had there only been the issue of the Chet Meraglim, which at that point Moshe Rabbeinu would go to Eretz Yisrael, because according to Rashi, the only reason for Moshe Rabbeinu not going to Eretz Yisrael is the issue with the Chet Meraglim. So had there not been Chet Meraglim, there only would have been the issue of Meraglim, then Moshe would have led the Eretz Yisrael, and Kalev and Yeshua would be the same. But because in the interim, 40 years later, Moshe Rabbeinu can't go to Eretz Yisrael, so now we need a leader. And therefore, Yeshua is the one leading. And here's the footnote 22 we mentioned before. This is what the Malbim says. You can look at it right over here. Yeshua nosan schar achakach shel gam ken shama vu yia man chalval ze amar Yeshua oise chazakin chalena mashkos gam b'sanei Hashem u'mayim muskar shleima. It's completely side issue. She'amalei Hashem she Yeshua yin chalem Yisrael hiktim shezeh mipnei shegam b'sanei Hashem b'kachem. Then why is Yeshua getting this extra thing that he has to lead the Yidden? Is because I'm not going in. And the Rebbe is taking this beer from the Malbim and learning it into Rashi. And the Rebbe is learning it that it's such an obvious fact that Rashi doesn't have to say it. That's the amazing thing here. And the Rebbe is making it so b'pashtus that Kalev is going in. I'm not going in, says Moshe. Because I'm not going in, therefore Yeshua has to lead you. The narrative seems so simple now, to the point that Rashi doesn't have to say anything. And the Rebbe quotes the Ramban, which we read earlier. Because he followed the Eibishter. The Yasker Oid, if it mentions well, that the pasuk also says that in order to explain to us why Yeshua is leading the people, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu is not going in. Okay, but as mentioned, the Ramban doesn't use this as a reason for why it's here. The Ramban says the reason why this line of Moshe Rabbeinu not going to Israel is here because the Torah wanted to put together all those who are not going in, and that the Rebbe rejected really earlier. Okay, at least in Pshut Shemikah of Rashi. And Rebbe continues, Rashi does not have to tell us that something is a Maimar Musker, a by the way. There's a few times in the Torah where we already see this idea that there's something which the narrative is interrupted to tell us a side issue. And Rebbe gives two examples. Ladugma, for example, the ill earlier. So where is this? Ara 23. It's Dvarim, Aleph, Tezayin, Yud, Zayin. So what's happening over there is that Moshe Rabbeinu is repeating this idea that the Yidden were growing so much that how could I carry the load myself? And all of your problems, like Rashi explains, that the dinim were too difficult to handle, and therefore I brought so I appointed people to be in charge of you. And you guys said it was a good idea, and therefore I took your leaders, he set up a system of courts and judges so that doesn't all fall on Moshe himself. And then in Tezayin and Zayin, these are the Pesukim the Rebbe is referring to, Moshe Rabbeinu says, and I told those shoftim that I appointed at that time that they should judge properly and they shouldn't show favor in court. And then the pasuk goes back to the narrative that I told you these commandments, and then we traveled from Chayrev and we went to the big desert, etc. So the Torah interjects the narrative to tell us something that Moshe Rabbeinu did at that time of the narrative, even though it's not relative to the narrative. And that he commanded the shoftim to be honest in court, even though as far as the narrative goes, it's not important. That's the first example that brings. The second one is, over there the pasuk is describing the story of the man and what the man looked like. Let's look in Ara 24. Tezayin pasuk lamed hey. Right, the Torah is describing what the man looked like, and the whole ma'isa of them that they got double portion on Friday, one for the day, one for Shabbos. And then the pasuk says, and the Yidden ate the man for 40 years straight. Right? It's taka coming in conjunction with the man. Within the story of the man, it's a side issue because the issue is a description of what was going on then. As a sidebar, it says, oh, by the way, this man lasted for the next 40 years. Even though the narrative is happening not throughout those 40 years, it's happening earlier, at the beginning of the 40 years, when the man actually starts to fall. And the Yidden are told to take twice on Friday. And then the Torah concludes, oh, by the way, this lasted for 40 years. And that's, the Rebbe says, look in Rashi Shom, Pasuk Lamed Gimel, the Rashi says, this pasuk where Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu to take, and Moshe Rabbeinu tells Aaron to take a tzintzenes of man and put it in the Mishkan to put it by the Ara and the Eidos, that should be a testimony for Yidden, the Mishmeret, that the Yidden should always know what they had. Rashi comments and says, so you see Rashi saying clearly there's something called a Maimar Muzgar. In other words, this didn't happen right now, but we're saying it now because we're talking about the month, so we're bringing up other issues related to that. So you see, says the Rebbe, there's precedent for this idea that the Torah says things that are Agav, or Maimar Muzgar. And therefore, and Rashi doesn't have to tell us explicitly. So now, what happens here is that actually there is a shtickle inconsistency in who the you is. Throughout the entire narrative of the Meraglim, when Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the story of the Meraglim, the you is the generation of the Meraglim. Because that's what he's talking about. He's talking about what happened. And if when he says you to the people, he's talking about the Dor of the Meraglim. But then when he says that I'm not going to Eretz Yisrael because of you, he's not talking about the Dor of the Meraglim. He's talking about you, the ones he's talking to right now, the people that are about to go into Eretz Yisrael, because those are the ones that were around by the Meraglim. But the Rebbe says that Rashi doesn't have to explain that change. Why should I cry Pirish Lifnei Zer? Rashi already said We already know it's talking about them because Rashi said it before already that the only reason why Moshe didn't go to Eretz Yisrael is because of the Mei Meriva. And if that's the case, when Rashi says now, when the Torah says now that Moshe is not going to Eretz Yisrael because of you, we know the you is the people who were there by Mei Meriva. And there's no reason to state and explain that inconsistency because it's self-evident. And as the Rebbe points out, the Rebbe further elucidates. And therefore Rashi doesn't have to explicitly tell us that there's a change in who the you is in the entire narrative, because before he's talking about the people of the generation of Raglav, and now he's talking about the people who are here right now in front of him because they were there by the Mei Meriva, because the whole thing's aside hemshich. If it were a connected narrative, then inconsistency would have to be explained. But because it's a sidebar, it's just a sidebar to explain why Yeshua is leading us in. And we already know that the Begal Chem is not anybody else but the people who were there at Mei Meriva, because we know that the only reason why Moshe didn't go to Eretz Yisrael, if there's no reason for Rashi to go ahead and explicitly state it. Because it's known on its own. That's first of all. We already know that. And Rashi doesn't have to point it out because it's not a change in the narrative, because it's not part of the narrative. It's a derech agav to explain something else, why Yeshua is going in. Right? In other words, there's two things coming together here. This is l'chora what it seems to me. If we didn't know that Begal Chem was talking about the people who were by the Mei Meriva and the people he's talking to now, the people that are going to Eretz Yisrael, then I should have to say it. But that's not true. We already know. We already know that it's talking about those people because that's the only reason why Moshe is not going to Eretz Yisrael. Number one. On the other hand, if this line was part of the same storyline said till now, then the inconsistency required explanation. But the point is not part of the same narrative. It's a derech agav to explain why Yeshua is leading you in. And if we're combining these two things together, there's no reason for us to explain what Begal Chem means. I hope that was somewhat clear. Okay. Hey, Amna Madayin Kasha, we still have to explain, considering the fact that this pasuk is a sidebar to explain why Yeshua's why Yeshua is becoming a leader, because Moshe is not going in. And it's only brought up here to tell us that Moshe is not going in, and therefore Yeshua, and that's why Yeshua has to be the leader. Why say that it's because of you? What's the difference? How and why Moshe is not going in? Just say Moshe is not going in. Moshe should say, Hashem got angry at me, I'm not going in, and therefore Yeshua is taking you. Why is it important to say that Hashem got angry at me because of you? The explanation is, Rashi already said in Parshas Pinchas, we mentioned this Rashi earlier. Anytime, any time it mentions the passing of Moshe and Aaron, it mentions their mistake. Because the Deira Midbar is not going to Israel. And they have their own reason for not going to Eretz Yisrael, because of the Chet Meraglim. Moshe wanted that his mistake should be explicitly stated, so that no one should make the mistake of thinking that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't believe he can go to Eretz Yisrael. Don't lump Moshe Rabbeinu with the rest of the people. He didn't make the same mistake they did. And therefore, because we mentioned the passing of Moshe, even though it's only derech agav, but the pilot's mentioned. So therefore we have to at least mention in some way, we have to at least mention even derech agav. We have to mention the mistake he made. That's not his fault, only because of them, because of the Yidden. It was the people who complained about not having water that caused the whole thing. And in footnote 26 is the Rebbe, Midbar, Chaf Gimel, Sham Chaf Zayin Yadalid. Right, these times are, I have it here. Yeah, here. The first one, Chaf Yudalid, is when the story actually happens, right? And there the pasuk says, I'm sorry, not Yudalid. There the pasuk says, the Yidden caused this whole problem by complaining. And then in Chav Zayin Yudalid, this is later, when Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, come up to Hara Avadim and here you're going to you're going to pass away here. And kasher, because of what happened by Mei Meriva. And there too, Tzaka says, the Meriva Sa'eda, because of the strife and the complaining of the people. And likewise, B'chol Gimel Elu, B'chein B'tilim Havil Kamam Fnim, the Pasuk in Tilim, which we're going to look at in a moment, Mutgesh She'ein Ha'inyin B'Moshe. It wasn't Moshe Benu, it was the Yidden. And therefore, by saying B'glalchem, we are fulfilling the mandate that any time Moshe Benu is passing is mentioned, we have to mention why he passed away. And by saying B'glalchem, we get a hint that it's an issue that wasn't in Moshe, it was an issue that the Yidden caused in Moshe. When I'm learning this, I have a question, and those who are listening, if you have an explanation, you're welcome to offer one. L'chora, the word B'glalchem, because of you, is not exclusive to Mei Meriva. What I mean is that if the issue was, let's say we'd go with the view we mentioned before, that the reason why Moshe didn't go to Eretz Yisrael is because of the Chet Meraglim, that would have also been B'glalchem. Right? Which means the B'glalchem itself, l'chora, doesn't satisfy this concern that every single time you mention Moshe's passing, you have to mention this Serchoinam. You have to mention their mistake they made. By saying B'glalchem, you're not doing that. You're just saying it's because of them. But because of them what? Because of them the Mei Meriva? Or because of them Chet Meraglim? So I guess you have to rely on the fact that Rashi already said that the only Aveda was the Mei Meriva. And because that's the only Aveda, therefore the B'glalchem is the B'glalchem of the Mei Meriva. Right? But whole Gufa Kasha, it's the B'glalchem isn't the Sircha of Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? The requirement here is by saying B'glalchem, you're not even saying Serchoinam. You're saying that it wasn't Serchoinam, it was the Yidden's fault. Right? So I don't see how this word B'glalchem, this is me speaking. I don't. Anyway, but this is what the Rebbe said. The B'glalchem is here to tell us that it wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu's fault. It's the Mei Meriva and it's the Yidden's. It was the Yidden who caused the whole problem. And this satisfied the mandate that anytime we mention the Misa, you have to mention their fault. But the floor is open. I'd love to hear other explanation. Okay, but continuing the Sikha. Now, having stated that the whole reason why this pasuk is mentioned is only derech agav, to explain why Yeshua was leading the people, because Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, and the word B'glalchem is also mentioned by Mar Musker to satisfy the need that every time you mention Moshe Rabbeinu's passing, if you mention Serchoinam, you would also understand something else Rashi omits. Like a moment Parshas V'schana, later in Parshas V'schana. Right? In Parshas V'schana, when Moshe Rabbeinu says that I daven to Hashem, that I should go into Eretz Yisrael, Nemar, and there it says, V'is aber Hashem bi l'manchem, that Hashem ignored me because of you, that I didn't get, Hashem said that I can't go to Eretz Yisrael because of you. Right? V'schana Gimel Chavav. Moshe Rabbeinu says, "You took me out of Eretz Yisrael. You took me. You showed me as Gadlacha. You showed me how great you are. You showed me all as good. You showed me the Eretz Haaretz HaTova Asher Be'evar Yarden, and v'yisaber Hashem bi l'manchem. Hashem didn't listen because of you." And Rashi touches v'yisaber nismal lechem. Hashem got angry because of you. Okay. Now Rashi touches the Pirush l'manchem. Atem geramtum li. Rashi says, L'manchem b'shvilchem atem geramtum li. You caused it to me. And then Rashi brings a raya that how do we know it wasn't because of him, because of the Yidden. Mashin is bar nema b'tilim, that which says in Tilim vayitzifu v'gomer. Pasuk in Tilim says, Perek Kovov pasuk Lamed Beis vayitzifu al Mei Meriva. They made Hashem angry at the waters, and Hashem made it bad for Moshe because of them. So the Rebbe asks, right now over here, when the Torah says that Moshe Rabbeinu was not going to Israel because of them, because of you, because of the Yidden, because of you Yidden right here that are about to go into Israel who were with me at the Mei Riva, we're parsing in our parsha. She couldn't parshas Chanam, which came before parshas Chanam. Listen, parshas Varim, why is Rashi relying on that which he's going to say later for you to understand what's happening now? So that Rebbe says in Torah 29, don't say Lamanchem means for your benefit. That's what the name says. Or Lamanchem, don't say Lamanchem means b'shvil koitchem for on your behalf. But rather say Lamanchem means Atam Garamta. The Rebbe says the word Begalchem could also mean on your behalf or for your glory or for your dignity. If that's the case, Rashi should address the question here when it said the word Begalchem and not later Lamanchem. Considering the fact that the Iker topic here is not Moshe Rabbeinu not going to touch Yisrael. The Iker topic is why the generation of the Meraglim are not going to touch Yisrael. And not for Derech Agav, but here it's only mentioned Derech Agav to say why Yeshua is leading. But the subject matter is not why Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to touch Yisrael. The subject matter is why the Yidden are not going to touch Yisrael. And only Derech Agav, because we mentioned Yeshua is going to lead you, we explain why Yeshua is going to lead you because Moshe is not going in. So move on, therefore, it's understood. Therefore, it's not important to explain every detail now. It's only a sidebar. It's only Derech Agav to explain something else. But the primary narrative where Moshe Rabbeinu describes he himself not going to Yisrael is in Eschanan. Just some particular Moshe Atzma. Where there he goes at length to say that I want to go to Yisrael. I asked Hashem, and Hashem said no because of you. And there, Yifarshenu v'Yifritenu, there Moshe Rabbeinu, there Taka Moshe is going to, the Rashi is going to explain it in its full detail.